Hey guys, Finlox here, back with a new review. This is RFL. Now, this was released in 2016 by Stegosoft Games. It's currently $15. Originally, it was released for $10, I believe, but they've recently updated it, and so now it's the Enhanced Edition, and now it's $15. Now, if you don't watch anything else in the video, do I recommend this game? Yes. I especially recommend it if you're a fan of JRPGs or good story. But let me start a new game. That way you can kind of see what the gameplay, or, see what the game kind of looks like. And then we'll go through a little of the negatives and a little of the positives. And here is the first thing, which is kind of your difficulty selection. I went through the game on normal. I played it for the channel, so if you're interested, you could check that out. And I'm not a huge fan of tactical style games, but I suspect playing through this on expert might make your choices far more meaningful instead of just like the sort of mindless grind of JRPGs. But I don't know. I haven't tried it. There is an achievement for beating the game on expert, or playing through the game on expert, but I went through normal, so it's fine. All right, now let me just address 3 or 4 of the negatives. And to be fair, the negatives are very minor. I think the biggest one of them would be the pacing. Probably the pacing is the most significant of all the negatives. And I'm just going to click through the dialogue so you can kind of see what it's like. It'll actually kind of pause and wait for you to go before going on to the next scene, which is nice. There's actually a lot of good design decisions in this game. But the pacing is not... I mean, it's not terrible. Like I said, all JRPGs do have pacing issues, usually at about the 60% mark, the 2/3 of the way through, when the main plot of the game kind of peters out, and then they're like, go do side quests until it's time for the climax, right? This one, it's actually as soon as the game opens up, right? So they do a bunch of plot, and then the game finally opens up about a third of the way through, and they're like, all right, now most of the world is available for you to explore. Here's a bunch of side quests. And I wasn't used to that, or expecting that. I was like, wait, are we close to the end already? But no, we're only about the 30% mark. So the sort of slowdown period is about a third of the way through, rather than the 60% mark. So it's about the 1/3 instead of 2/3 mark. And that, you do all the side quests, and then you go again and you start doing the story, and you're like, oh, okay, and it picks up again. So negatives, right? Every negative has like a positive on its flip side. So pacing is not, I mean, it's a negative, but it's not a huge negative. Music is another one. The music is fantastic. But if I were to sit here and wait, you would hear the problem I'm about to address, which is the fact that if you've ever listened to a song on repeat, songs have a beginning and an end. And then when they loop, they stop, and then they start again. And that's what happens with all the music tracks. They're on loop, and they have a beginning and an end. They don't just keep repeating. And you know how the music repeat, like, see right there, it started, it stopped, or stopped then started. It doesn't keep going with, like, they don't just chop off the beginning and the end and repeat the thing. It stops and then it starts again. That's a flaw, because as soon as you notice it, you're like, wait, what's going on? Why is it doing that? Couldn't they fix that? Didn't they notice? Like I said, all these complaints are minor. And then I suppose the other big minor one would be probably the class changes. Your characters have classes. At some point, you get the ability to have an upgrade, and you're presented with 2 options. Problem is, only one of them gives you a save before. All the others, you either have to go through a dungeon or usually it's fight a boss in a cutscene. And I don't really want to do that. They do sort of describe what your choices are, but it upgrades all of your skills as well, and you're like, well, which upgrade do I want? What do the actual upgrades do? And so that's an issue. I'd like to, especially since before all the bosses and all of the cutscenes, they're like, hey, do you want to save? This is going to be a cutscene or a boss fight. It auto saves, and then it's like, are you sure you want to go forward? You could go look for some other treasure in that other path that you walked by instead. So it doesn't make sense why they do that, and then still before the class change, they're like, yep, just pick. Nope, you don't get to save, just pick one. But that's basically it for the negatives. I mean, there's not much. This game is great. I would recommend it. And you can kind of see, let's talk about some of the positives now. So maybe the biggest positive for me is not necessarily the story, because the story is kind of cliched. It's a JRPG. It's been sealed for 1,000 years. It's like, of course, we're going to end up saving the world, some ancient evil, blah, 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 right? But what really makes this game stand out for me is the characters. Your main party members are so well developed that, in at least for me, they don't feel like characters. They feel like real people. And more importantly, I liked them. I empathized and sympathized with them. I wanted to see them succeed, and I was emotionally invested. And it's fantastic. You get a little epilogue at the end of the game, and I was like, that's awesome. I want to know what happens to them afterwards, because I like the characters. That's probably the strongest thing. And I don't know if I mentioned the art direction yet, but the art direction looks fantastic as well. I like the pixel art. I like all the little details. It almost seems like at times there's too much going on, because we have butterflies, we have little rodents running around. We'll go on to the next screen, and we'll see you can gather like resources and stuff, and those little resource gathering points are everywhere. But that's also something that I think is pretty clever as well. See more little butterflies, little sparkly things. That's the resource. Little rodents, like I mentioned. There's a lot of detail. It's very... I mean, it's pixel art, right? It looks like a 16-bit game, kind of, but it's still very detailed for... It's like the retro look, but it's still detailed, if that makes sense. Additionally, something I really like is the crafting system. Although crafting is... I mean, it is sort of a crafting system, because you can make potions and stuff, but it's also an upgrade system. Because it's not like normal JRPGs where you just grind, and then you get to the next town and you buy upgrades for, you buy a new sword for all of your people. No, this one is like your characters start with all the equipment they'll ever need. And you go and you find these little resource points, and you take the materials from them, and then you use those to upgrade your stuff. So it's almost like it's rewarding your exploration by giving you upgrade materials, which you can then use to make yourself stronger. But also it's a choice. I mean, you keep exploring, and eventually you get enough to upgrade all of your stuff, and more, way more. More than you need. But when you're first accumulating this stuff, the minute you have enough, you're like, well, I only have enough for one item. Do I want to upgrade my weapon, or do I want to upgrade my armor, or do I want to upgrade this other thing that raises a different stat? You have to make those choices. And yeah, grinding, and you have levels too, and that makes a difference. But I really do like the crafting system. It's like little collectibles. It feels good to constantly explore and be rewarded, and then use that to make your character stronger. So I mentioned the art, I mentioned the music, I mentioned the characters. Anything else? I mentioned some negatives, I mentioned some positives. Honestly, like I said, I do recommend this game. If you like JRPGs or story, there is some grinding, but it wasn't too bad. Overall, the game will probably take you 15 to 20 hours, For me, it took me about 30, but that's because, I mean, when I played the game for the channel, so I was reading everything aloud, and that slows things down considerably. And also, I mean, I like to talk, and so that slows things down as well. So it took me over 30 hours to get through the game, but realistically, you're probably looking at 15 to 20 for you to play through. And that's fine. It's a good little RPG. It feels like a good length. And yeah, like I said, it's great. The characters are great, the art direction's great, the music I still think about from time to time. And there are some negatives, but they don't really outweigh, they don't even come close to outweighing the positives. And even, you know, actually maybe the class change is the biggest one, because that's something you can't take back. You can actually maybe you can respec all your characters, so I don't know if that was one of the options as well, but I don't think so. But even if it is, at least on normal, the game, you just grind a little bit and the game becomes easier, so it's not a huge thing, and these things just modify your attack style basically, so it's not a huge deal. Even if you pick the wrong choice, I don't think it'll matter too much. I still felt very overpowered by the end, which also is kind of good, because underpowered means you're just sort of wasting your time. It's like, oh, okay, you hit me, I spend a turn healing, and then I hit you, and you hit me another couple turns, and then I heal again. It's just, as opposed to just me, you know, hitting you and killing the boss in 3 turns or whatever. But that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention. Really do hope you guys enjoyed this video and my other videos. Like I said, the game is great. That is all. I hope to see you guys next time. Till then, guys, take care.